In World of Warcraft, quests play a core role when it comes to leveling, both in terms of rewards being high amounts of experience, and in some cases gear or other useful items. While sometimes overlooked, quests have another important purpose, as they also serve as the main medium of which the story of the Warcraft universe is told. And while most quests that a player completes can be redone on another character at a later time, some quests were removed from the game, making both the rewards as well as the story that they provide inaccessible. Most of these quests were removed when the old world environment was updated with the Cataclysm expansion, which launched in 2010. Some notable examples of these are the Priest and Hunter class questlines for their iconic weapons, but there were many other quests that were deemed too outdated to keep when Kalimdor and Eastern Kingdoms were reworked. Luckily, players can still relive those quests of the old time by playing on either the Classic Wrath or the Classic Vanilla version of the game, which I do recommend. In this video, however, we will be taking a look at 3 quests that were removed much earlier in the game's history, and therefore do not appear in any of the classic versions of the game, effectively making them only exist in memory. The last one of these quests was removed so early and has such little trace left of its existence that it could be argued that it has been completely lost in time. This is the story of the Forgotten Quests. For all 3 quests, the story starts with the launch of World of Warcraft in 2004. Here, a few items and other gameplay elements that were unfinished still made it into the game on release. The first of these were the Pocket Black Box, which used to drop from an NPC in the Badlands. The item had a question mark for its icon and started the quest which sent players across the game to an NPC in the Shimmering Flats, only to learn that the NPC would not turn in the quest, effectively making the quest impossible to complete. I have already made a video showing this quest in more detail, which you can find on my channel or in the description below. The item was eventually removed in patch 1.3, which means that very few players managed to get it, but those who did were allowed to keep the item. The second quest item is one that goes by the name of Flayed Demon Skin Old 2, which used to drop from Burning Blade members in the Desolace Zone. The item starts a quest called the Corruptor, which is part of a questline that ends with the player having to kill a level 40 elite, which is a pretty steep increase in difficulty considering that the NPCs that dropped the initial item were level 30 to 31 and not elite. After completing the quest, the player was rewarded with a decent amount of experience and the choice between a shield and a shoulder slot item, as well as 150 reputation with every faction of the Horde. This is where the problem lied, as the Burning Blade was hostile to both the Horde and the Alliance, with the quest item being able to drop for players of both factions. The item was eventually removed from the drop table, having its name changed to Flayed Demon Skin Old 2 and being replaced by the Flayed Demon Skin, an identical item but with the addition of a criteria that the player must be at least neutral to the Horde. The last and by far the oldest quest was a quest called the Waiting Word, which Alliance players could pick up by going to Watcher Dots in the Duskwood Zone. In the quest, Watcher Dots sends the player out to find his colleague Watcher Callahan on the road leading to the Red Ridge Mountains Zone. To the player, this looked like a fairly standard start to a questline, where they're sent out to complete a series of quests in another location. Something that is common in the 4 zones of Elven Forest, Westfall, Red Ridge Mountains and Duskwood, which all play nicely into each other, especially compared to the quality of quests in the very early days. Upon finding Watcher Callahan, the player would be disappointed, as after completing the quest, no follow-up quests were given. This suggests that the quest was an opening to a questline that was never fully implemented when the game launched. Shortly after the game's release, the quest was removed and in all likelihood forgotten by everybody, as even the developers ended up using the quest's ID of 236 for another completely unrelated quest in the Wintergrasp Zone during the Wrath of the Lich King expansion. This is something that is usually never done for quests that were once part of the game, as it could mess with the quest logs of those very few players who may have had the quest prior to this. Looking up the quest on the classic database today, you will see the Wintergrasp quest called Fueling the Demolishers, which requires 10 Eternal Ember, although all you will see is a reference to an unknown item ID, as the Eternal Ember item does not yet exist in this version of the game. Scrolling past the comments relating to the new version of the quest, you will be able to see the original comments on this quest, which I imported from the old database called Elakasam sometime by the end of Vanilla WoW. As both quest giver Watcher Dots as well as Watcher Callahan's relation to this quest ceased sometime during the first patch of World of Warcraft, it has been at least 18 years since this quest has last been completed, and its brief existence has likely been forgotten by everybody, even its developers. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching.